With that, I would like to turn it over to Katie. Katie, please introduce yourself and take us into your materials.
Thanks, Dan. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie Smith. I'm a research associate on the digital shipbuilding team at the Virginia Modeling Analysis and Simulation Center at Old Dominion University. I wish that wasn't quite a mouthful, but at least we have some acronyms, VMASC and ODU, to shorten those things up. So just a little bit about me before we get started. My background is in mathematics and modeling and simulation, in particular computational modeling and systems modeling. And then I also have a background in mechanical engineering. So before I started working for VMASC as part of the digital shipbuilding team, I was over in the math department for almost a decade. And prior to that, I was an aerospace engineer at NASA Langley Research Center. So currently, as part of the digital shipbuilding team, you'll see a little bit later in the presentation where each of our expertise as team members lie. But I'm on the research and development side, trying to basically do research in ways that we can solve industry problems and help propel the industry into the digital age. And like I said, we'll go through that in more detail, and I can provide more information about my background when I do each of our team members a little bit later in the slide deck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present a little bit about VMASC first, exactly what that is as an enterprise research center of Old Dominion University, and then I'll switch over and spend a little bit more time talking about digital shipbuilding. If you have questions as we go, I do have my chat window open, so you can put them in there. If it's something I can quickly address, I can do that as we go. And then like Dan just typed in there, if it's a bigger question that requires more discussion, we can wait till the end of the hour. Okay. My email address is on this first slide. That is k3smith@odu.edu. The 3 doesn't mean anything. There's just far too many Smiths. All right, so the Virginia Modeling Analysis and Simulation Center is it's actually located next to ODU's Tri-Cities Center in Suffolk, where 164 and 664 meet, but it is a distinct research center from that higher education center. So what exactly are we? So we do applied research leading to digital transformation. So VMASC is an enterprise center of Old Dominion University. So we are not under any academic college. We're actually under the Office of Research, and we support the research mission of the university through innovation, workforce development, and industry ecosystem engagement. So working with industry partners to make sure that we're filling real needs and not just conducting academic research, but we're an applied research center. So a little bit of history. The center was founded over 20 years ago, almost 25 now, in July of 1997, as a collaboration between the Department of Defense and the Commonwealth of Virginia. It started out near where JFCOM used to be as modeling and simulation support for JFCOM. Since then, the modeling and simulation, as the edges of that have kind of become blurred, it has expanded into adjacent disciplines and moved on from being a strictly modeling and simulation for the defense industry. Things like analytics have moved into things like data science. Engineering has spread out a little bit and started to integrate systems engineering. And even though computational modeling is our main through thread, so we've always done computational modeling, the center also has regional engagement programs and application areas well beyond defense, including the one we're going to talk about today, which is digital shipbuilding. Here's just some additional research areas. I won't read them to you. If you go to odu.edu/vmask/research, there's a whole list with points of contact for each one. And so, if you were interested in cybersecurity or something like that, Dr. Sebastian Shetty is the point of contact there. For maritime innovation, which includes MIBE, if you've heard of that, and also our digital shipbuilding team, which is the team I'm part of. It's retired Rear Admiral Brad Williamson. And so that's kind of where we're going to focus. So VMAS actually has 3 locations, 3 research and engagement sites in the Hampton Roads region. The main one is our Suffolk facility. It is a secure 60,000 square foot research and conference center. We have 11 labs and 10 conference rooms that can host events for up to 150 participants. So we do have the VMAS Industry Association, and that provides, some benefits with our partners in government and things like that, as well as discounted rates for hosting space in the meeting rooms and those types of things. But we do have that facility. A lot of people don't know it's there because it is tucked in behind the trees, right off the interstate, as I mentioned before. We have a large reconfigurable lab that we call the C Lab, that has a wide range augmented and virtual reality space. We have several smaller areas off of that are reconfigurable for things like a flight simulator. One of them is currently home to a sandbox. And kind of looking at how we can use sensory information, if we can put somebody feeling the sand physically, but hearing the ocean, things like that, are we able to get the same level of calm and relaxation? And just a variety of other things. We can actually move the walls in that space to sort of break it down into smaller lab spaces or open the whole thing up as an AR, VR object tracking range. Our digital shipbuilding lab is also located in that facility, and I'll talk about that when I get to that slide. Our other facilities are the MEPS lab, which is located at the Jefferson Lab in Newport News out of a partnership with Ackerman. And then the Brooks Crossing Innovation Lab, which is a space for community and workforce development. It's in the Brooks Crossing building, where Newport News Shipbuilding has offices upstairs, and the Brooks Crossing Innovation Lab shares the first floor with the City of Newport News Workforce Development. All right, so that's kind of VMASC in a nutshell. Again, just an applied research center doing a variety of different things. There's over 70 researchers in the building, and so there's a lot of different things going. All right, so let's move on, and we can talk about what you all came to hear about, which is digital shipbuilding. So one of the things about digital shipbuilding is we've kind of noticed, and I'm sure you have too, that everybody sort of has maybe their own idea or own definition for what it is. We think of it as the application of Industry 4.0 and digital transformation technology to the shipbuilding and repair industry in order to meet any demands there may be, whether those are needs in industry where we need research and development to solve a problem or a gap, or if it's something where we need to upskill the workforce so that the individuals who are coming in have certain skills that were missing before. In short, we think of it as leveraging data that helps us make more informed and efficient decisions to bridge the gap between the digital and traditional worlds in the shipbuilding industry. So as an applied discipline, we really think of it as using data to answer questions that are very real in workforce development, industry needs, and things like that. So all of these things on the right hand of the slide kind of show how digital shipbuilding might be realized. So if it's a fully annotated 3D design or digital twin, whether we're implementing an agile culture, and so we're learning by doing, or we have some solutions that are focused on the craftsman and foreman rather than being focused at a different level. And I'm sure there's many, many more. So I'm sure everybody here knows Hampton Roads is a maritime hub, and the maritime industry is vibrant. So we basically want to help the local industry to capitalize on the opportunities of investing in this industry, and kind of moving along and implementing those new technologies to look at exactly how to move the industry forward. There's a lot of statistics on this page, including $1.5 trillion in cargo through the US seaports. That was 4 years ago. And then we have over 120 shipyards in the nation. But in particular in Virginia, we are a major stakeholder in that industry. And so we have one US owned public yard, 8 private yards, and a whole bunch of other facilities. We basically know that we have a ton of Navy things going on around here. We have the Norfolk Naval Base, the largest Navy base in the world, and there's about 63,000 shipbuilding and repair related jobs, which amounts to about $5.5 billion of work per year. And so the citation numbers that are on here, I don't have the references linked into this presentation, but I can provide them with an updated presentation that Dan can send the slides out after with the video link, so that if you wanted to look at those resources, you could. Yeah, so I'm going to jump back just real quick to talk about digital thread. And so when we're talking about the digital thread linking all the way through, a lot of times in a traditional engineering process, we would think about an engineer who sits down and, designs a 3D model, right, with certain capabilities, and does structural load testing and all of those things. And then that gets mapped to drawings. And those drawings get broken down into work packages that get handed off to craftsmen who do particular jobs. So you have welders and electricians and things like that, who are all kind of working together to build this one thing. And it moves out of a digital space and into a physical world. But with the digital thread through the entire thing, we want to make sure that if we have that original set of drawings, and then the as implemented part is slightly different, well, how do we keep that digital twin so that we have exactly the as built condition? And the digital thread is going all the way through from design into production, and then follows the craft into its service life. So if something needs to be moved or something needs to be upgraded while they're at sea, all of those things kind of update, and we have a digital thread of data that passes through all of those things, so that we can do analytics, or we can go back, and if we need to make a change later, or we know the ship's at sea and it's coming in for maintenance soon, we kind of have an idea of the as-built condition on there. And that of course relates to the workforce on board and all of those things as well. Okay. So now that we've kind of discussed what digital shipbuilding is, and what shipbuilding looks like in the Hampton Roads region, we kind of want to talk about, why we might want to do this. So we know we have a vibrant maritime industry. Why do we need to change anything about it? Why move digital? So a few key points. So the maritime industry is fairly outdated compared to other transportation manufacturing industries. So talking about like aerospace and automobile industries. And some of the reasons for that are that facilities require a large investment to maintain and upgrade. We're talking about huge ships that are getting built in this area, huge pieces of equipment, things like that. There is a very low profit margin in the shipbuilding arena. So the profit margin is less than 10%. And so it's difficult to invest back into technology when you're working with a low profit margin. And then the other aspect is that we have these demonstrated proven processes that are kind of codified, right? As far as we're building ships for the government, and they have a way things have been done. These processes are proven. And so when we go to put back in some of the technology and things like that, we have to redefine those processes, and we want to make sure that we don't lose the quality of work when we do that. Another aspect or characteristic of the shipbuilding workforce is that it's rapidly aging. So the average age in the shipbuilding workforce is 55 years old. And by 2028, we're going to lose approximately 33% of the skilled workforce and 48% of the managers. So we have a digital workforce that's coming in. They've had a cell phone in their hand for as long as they can remember. They're adept at using technology. And by 2025, that digital generation will make up over 50% of the workforce. There's a huge need to fill those positions. And so we want to make sure that the jobs and things like that are attractive to those workers, and that we're implementing the technologies in a way that makes those workers successful. And then the kind of last point here is that there's an increased demand in ships. You know, somebody was talking about the Virginia Pilot article at the very beginning of the call, and how there's, you know, even more increased demand. So we're hearing that constantly all the time, but there's usually a constant investment, so a constant dollar amount, and then reduced timelines. So we think faster, better, cheaper, right? But that's difficult. So how do we change what we're doing without losing quality? And one of those things is to implement technologies that help us to be more efficient, so that we can maintain the same level of quality, respond to the increased demand, and then, you know, not need quite so much additional investment, and still be responsive to those reduced timelines. Okay, so particularly, we talked about digital shipbuilding in general, why we might want to go digital, why we might want to, you know, take the decades that it's going to take to implement these initiatives. Now we're going to talk about specifically what the Virginia Digital Shipbuilding Program is. So we're a team of researchers at VMASC, which, as I mentioned, is a research center of Old Dominion University. It was initiated by a Go Virginia grant in 2018. That Go Virginia grant went from February 2018 to February 2020. It is sustained by funding from the Virginia State Assembly. So they give us a big grant to get started, to get our lab up and running, to get equipment and things like that. And now we have, I believe, 4 people whose salaries are directly funded by the state, so that's kind of in perpetuity. So we'll keep going. We focus on 3 pillars. So the first one is career pathway mapping and curriculum development. And so what this is it's a focus on K-20. So we're thinking kindergarten to all the way through high school, undergraduate education, graduate education, workforce development, apprenticeship, training in the trades, all of that, that's stackable and transferable. So no matter where you get your training, you have this accreditation that's industry recognized. And if you start in the Navy, you get a particular accreditation for a particular job skill. We know what that means, and it can transfer outside to industry and vice versa. So that we have, you know, everything kind of builds on each other, and we're not losing the meaning of those trainings. And then the focus really is on finding and filling education and training gaps. So our curriculum coordinator has been doing an end-to-end analysis of education and training needs. We really want to be responsive to training needs within the industry. And then in addition to that, everybody probably is aware that, you know, as a culture or society, we've moved away from people wanting to go to an apprentice school or wanting to go into the trades. And the fact is that there's excellent jobs that are very stable and we have a high need in those things. So we need a culture shift to sort of bring that back and say, there's no reason to go get a 4-year degree if, you want to go to the apprentice school and be a welder or an electrician or something like that. And then as part of that, if you eventually wanted to build upon it, to move into management, something like that, how do we capitalize on the training that you've already done and add to it to get the credentials of where you want to go? The second pillar is outreach and workforce development. So that's increasing awareness and highlighting shipbuilding opportunities. So the workforce has a need, it has a very low unemployment rate, and it constantly needs new skilled workers to fit those roles. And we want to do that by collaborating across industry, academia, and government, so that we're not having someone come out of college with a 4-year degree and they go into industry and they need additional training or something like that. Part of this, I'll talk about in a little bit. We'd like to have a certificate program that's basically in response to gaps in training that the industry is seeing. And so we're basically getting people ready to fill those gaps, to apply the Industry 4.0 technologies, and have individuals within the workforce who are able to help the industry transition and will be responsive to the needs. The third pillar is research and development. So this is basically, we're doing a continuous analysis of the shipbuilding and ship repair programs and systems, infrastructure, supply chain, workforce, processes. Wherever there's a gap or something that's not working well, we want to, be able to assist and do some research and development on how to solve that problem. And also promote innovation through the adoption of new technology and then implementation of real-time solutions. So there's tons and tons of data out there. One of the things that we really want to work towards is being able to use that data to answer questions. With my background in mathematics, I know that I can show charts and graphs all day long, and somebody's going to look at me and go, what are you telling me? How does this help me? Right? And so it's really focusing on those problems that are identified in industry by the industry, and using the digital technologies and data-based technologies to solve those. And so just a little bit of background about how we've kind of focused our strengths on collaborations. Based on data from 2019, the Virginia Digital Shipbuilding Program had engaged over 300 businesses, 25 government and academic partners, conducted 10 workshops at various levels, and engaged nearly 6,000 people. And so basically, we want to continue those partnerships and focusing on a partnership model so that we're drawing on the expertise of the people who are in the industry every single day and bringing these 3 pillars about to solve industry problems. We do collaborate with the 3 community colleges. 3 community colleges. So that's TCC, TNCC, I'm drawing a blank on which one might be the third one that you're referring to, Mike. But I know our curriculum coordinator is in talks with at least TC and Thomas Nelson, and other community colleges and even some community college organizations further west in the state. I think she does have connection with Paul DeCamp, but I would have to ask our curriculum coordinator to kind of be sure. And so we work with them. I know TCC has a program where they've got, their bright scholars who are going through, and I cannot remember the name of the program off the top of my head. Jess would Jess would have all of this. But working with them in their existing programs where they're promoting success within their students, as well as helping develop their curriculum in order to integrate the things that shipbuilding needs. So I know there's a CAD class at Thomas Nelson Community College that's recently been redeveloped and revamped with the help of our curriculum coordinator, Jess Johnson. And then she has a very close partnership with individuals at TCC as well, you know, to help them with those programs. If you have a particular outreach or something like that, if you feel free to contact me, I can get you in touch with Jess, and she definitely has all the contacts at the community colleges for sure. New College Institute is one that we have, but they're further out into the middle of Virginia, but we do partner with them. We have sent teams out to do workshops at the New College Institute. We were supposed to go back, but of course, COVID-19 was an issue. And so that has made things tougher. So as far as the COVID-19 kind of forcing us into a virtual model with our analysts and developers, I personally have not been back in the office since February, and we've kicked off several new projects. So we are able to work remotely, and that really hasn't been a big issue for our team on the research and development side. As far as the outreach side, I know that we've been working really hard to come up with programs and things like that that will help the local schools, and then also provide additional resources online. So I know Jess put out a sequence of videos that are on the Digital Shipbuilding website to sort of engage the K-12 students. And she's also been working with a lot of her contacts in how do we keep this outreach, how do we keep this education going in this COVID-19 environment. Okay. So, and I'm not skipping over questions, but I am going to go back to some of them at the end, just to kind of keep going kind of through the flow of the presentation. And then, like I mentioned, we'll just bounce back up. All right, so who's on our digital shipbuilding team? So I mentioned retired Rear Admiral Brad Williamson. He's our director. And then Joe Costeco is our assistant director. And so they kind of guide the team and do the day-to-day program management. As far as the researchers on the team, we have Dr. Rafael Diaz. He's an associate research professor, and his expertise is mostly in digitizing supply chain management, logistics, operations management, and the intersection of operations management and information technology. And then we have Jess Johnson. She's our curricular coordinator. She's an educational and human factor psychologist who works with cognitive architectures, STEM curriculum development, educational neuroscience. She and I have been collaborating a lot on competency models recently, on how do we take a look at competency models and make sure that that's what we're focusing on, is our competencies, so that we're basing a person's ability on their skills and not just knowledge, but how they use that knowledge and enact it as a skill, and how we can track that. And then I'm at the bottom. I'm a research associate. My expertise is in data analytics and machine learning. I've done a lot of systems modeling, augmented and virtual reality. And then one of the things I really enjoy doing is scientific and information visualization. And I just think it's incredibly important that we not only have a solution, but we can demonstrate it to stakeholders and show somebody why it matters to them. So, we definitely want to be an applied research team and demonstrate how solutions are important in the industry and not just in some theoretical framework. And then I've done several interventions for STEM education, created some math, physics, and chemistry games, and things like that in the past. So we are interfacing with local high schools and elementary schools. One of the great things about Jess is that she was an educator for 12 years, and she's been a STEM coordinator in the Hampton Roads area. And she basically knows somebody in every single school division, if not every single school in the area. And so what we try to do is balance where we might work with Hampton because they have their Maritime Academy. And then we're currently writing a grant that reaches out to Isle of Wight schools and talks about how they're implementing the engineering design process and how we can help to teach that better, because there's known deficiencies in the way that educators approach that. And they've been demonstrated that it's a hard thing to teach. And so how can we help the teachers have better tools so that they can be more effective with their students? And all the way from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. The Isle of Wight project is for middle school students. We recently got a grant that's going to be 3rd through 8th graders. We host an annual math festival, which is on shaky ground as far as whether it'll be real or virtual for the 2021 year. But that's for 3rd through 8th grade students. So opportunities across the board to try to get kids engaged, let them know what shipbuilding is and how they can feel some ownership in it, see themselves represented in the industry. So, representation is a big deal when kids can see, oh, that person, looks like me or is from the same background as me or something like that, and they're in the industry and they're doing this really cool stuff. Maybe I can too. Okay. So it's just a picture of, it's actually probably about a quarter of our digital shipbuilding lab. So we mocked up a bulkhead that we can attach things to. We have a whole host of laser scanners at different levels of resolution. Currently, if you were to walk into our shipbuilding lab, there's a wind tunnel that we picked up. It's just a small educational use one. We've got a towing tank that again is small. And then we also have the ability to use it as a small conference area with a table and a large screen TV so that we can do video and interactive conferencing. They've been using that quite a bit with COVID so that, we can have people come in on the big screen, not have to be there physically. But that space is pretty reconfigurable. You can see on the back table here, this is actually a part of an activity where kids learn to assemble things on a bulkhead, and they get to look at the design in virtual reality. They get to build the design, including some wiring, and then it's inspected using an iPad with a sensor on it that allows it to do an augmented reality inspection to see if they got the assembly right or not. All of that is coordinated with career connections. And so throughout, the goal is, hey, you're doing this activity, you kind of like this, you like these skills, guess what? Here's the type of career that might link to. Okay. Here's a list of some selected current projects that we're working on. So we are, and like I won't read through all of these, and there's additional ones as well. But I mentioned, so Raphael and I have been working a lot on taking a look at the supply chain and that supply chain framework. So basically developing a model to look at, well, if something like COVID-19 happens and it affects our suppliers way down the line, what kind of effects are we going to experience? And is there a way that we can increase the stability in the supply chain before an event like that happens? Is there a way that we can be aware of, what if one of our smaller suppliers fails? If we know of another supplier that we can insert into the model, what's the best way to keep those in line? Not with Port Authority, we work with the Port of Virginia. So we have a contact over there that we're working with, and hopefully that project's moving forward. It's in early stages, but we do have a letter of collaboration and things like that. And so that's one of the places that we're pushing for to get funding to kind of define that relationship. I've mentioned the certificate. Here's a few other things. These things here, the top two, are basically to do with competency models and how do we collect that information? How do we put it in our training into a learning management system, and so that we can standardize it. And then this DSB plus STEM is going to be basically for K to 12, linking things in, looking at the key areas of digital shipbuilding, and making connections to the computer science curriculum as well, and doing some interactive gaming. That is supported by Newport News Shipbuilding, one of their innovation grants. Some data analytics courses that we've developed. That project is actually run off of the main campus with a small contingent of people over at VMAS working on it. All right, so how can we collaborate? So there's a lot of different ways that you can collaborate with academia. So like I mentioned, we're fully funded. So if you have an issue or something like that, thinking about, hey, we would like to model this, get a better idea of how this works. We can schedule a meeting and sit down and talk and decide if we have an idea. As far as contracting for funds to actually support an activity, VMAS just got a brand new director of contracting. It's a position we've not had before. And what it is it brings somebody from ODU's contracting office on site and internal to the VMAS organization. And so that the person, her name is Carly Thomas. She's an expert in exactly how we can collaborate, finding methods. We do apply for grants from, the big national academic organizations like the National Science Foundation, but also smaller opportunities collaborating with small businesses on SBIRs and STTRs, and then, finding opportunities through the Office of Naval Research and things like that, where we can define a project and say, we definitely see this as a need. We've justified there is a gap. We really need to fill this, and then lining it up with one of those calls from the naval organizations. I believe the new calls for STTRs just came out this past week to open in January for proposals. So they have a list of things out there that they're currently interested in. I've got our contact information on here. Dan's going to send out the slides with the presentation, so you'll be able to grab that. And I'm going to bounce back over and hit the questions that I've missed, and feel free to ask any more as we kind of go through. So so there's a couple questions about Newport News Shipbuilding on here. So can we describe our collaboration? And then who's driving the boat on the digital shipbuilding initiative, Newport News Shipbuilding or VMAS. And so driving the boat, I would say that, that's maybe a loaded question. So we have our own digital shipbuilding initiative inside of FEMASC. And our goal is to collaborate with as many organizations as possible to help them solve problems. So where we would take a look at if Newport News Shipbuilding had a problem that they could solve with their own personnel, they wouldn't necessarily, be reaching out. But where we can collaborate with some of those things, looking at supply chain or looking at, various cyber physical systems or something like that, those are areas that we would very much want to and be open to collaboration with Newport News Shipbuilding. So in the very beginning of all this, we had a contact inside who kind of helped us map to the individual organizations in Newport News Shipbuilding to get us to the right point of contact. His name was Brent Woodhouse, and he left. And so we have been sort of more finding other organizations rather than through a central point of contact, a little bit more manually. So if somebody were to have an issue or something like that, we'd be more than happy to talk to them. So any interaction with flying ships. So I actually just before this call got off of a kickoff meeting for a new contract or new grant that we have that is actually under the Air Force. And we're looking at competency models with them. And so that's the only current project that we have that's funded by the Air Force. But they do have a lot of similar problems, building planes, building ships. It's all some of the same issues. So we do have that one current opportunity with them. Okay, let's see. Chesapeake Public Schools. Okay, yeah, definitely. High schools. So we don't currently have any projects looking at modeling of interactions between like electrical, electronic, electromagnetic systems. But what I find when we look at most systems is that whether it's an electrical system or the electromechanical systems that I used to model when I worked at NASA, or a purely mechanical system, a lot of the mathematics behind those is very, very similar once you get down to kind of equations and things like that. And we do a lot of work with modeling interactions and dependencies between systems. So something electrical or electronic would definitely be within our wheelhouse to start to take a look at. We don't have any current work that I could give you as an example that we in particular look at that. So I would say a 17-year-old graduating from high school could send an email to either myself or Jess Johnson and see exactly how to get plugged in based on their interest. We do have the website as well, and I don't think that that's in my presentation, but before I'll add those references like I said I was going to, and I'll add a link to our digital shipbuilding webpage on this contact page. And that actually has information also. So they could go and take a look and see, and then that has different programs that would be available to them. And from there, different contacts. So for example, if that 17-year-old graduating from high school was interested in going to TCC, they have their STEM Promise program. And that's one area that person might qualify for for additional mentoring and things like that. If they were looking at going to ODU, maybe a slightly different story.
Katie, I have a question. I'm going to pop in with an audio version of this. So,
Okay.
I think your program is a tremendous asset to the region. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with the reach and collaboration, i.e., are your materials correctly being shared throughout the region in all entities that would need it, i.e., education, Newport News Shipbuilding, where it makes sense, etc.?
So that's a good question. So I actually would almost turn that around, and so basically, we're happy when people who have a need for what we're doing get a hold of our materials. So currently, I think every member of our team is pretty busy as far as projects and project work going, and so the current team is being fully utilized, and we're getting ready to hire a few more members and things like that. But one of the issues of just VMask being associated with ODU in general is that a lot of people don't know what VMask is. And so I know we are hiring a communication strategist for not only digital shipbuilding, but MIBE as well, to help get that information out through some different communications channels than we've used before. So hopefully that answers your questions. I mean, I think that we're a pretty small team with a lot of opportunities for work, especially if we're looking on the research and development and the educational and outreach and workforce development aspects. And so I think for a small team that's been, I mean, I've been with digital shipbuilding for 1.5 years, so not that long. The longest anybody's been on the team's only been in existence about 2.5 years. So I think we definitely have some things to learn and keep pushing that reach to get the information into the hands of the right parties. But that, for the short time period that we've had, I think that there are a lot of people who do know about the work that we're getting enough back to identify those industry problems, and we really just want to grow more in that area to see what's out there and keep focusing on the applied side of things. And then I think Rich had a little bit of a follow-up to his electronic systems question. When you're talking about shipboard systems becoming more digitally oriented, that's one of the things that we're actually looking at with the Port of Virginia is cyber physical systems. And so how electronic systems work with a system that was previously mostly physical, and then how all of those electronics communicate back to one another. And so that's really something that we are strongly looking into currently at the port, but you're right that it's, as it becomes more prevalent on the shipboard side, how everything communicates becomes a really, it's a big task of kind of untangling that web and making sure that the information gets to where it needs to be at the right time. Okay, I think I hit everybody's questions. If somebody wants, we have just a few minutes before 1 o'clock.
Yeah, we're getting close, everybody. So last call.
Yeah. And Dan is going to send out my slides. I'll send them in PDF so everybody can access them. And then feel free, if you had a question or anything like that, if you want to reach out to me as a main point of contact, if I'm not the right person on the team, I'll put you in touch with whoever is. If you do have a particular question for education, you feel like you'd rather reach directly out to Jess, you're more than welcome to do that as well.
Great. Well, I think we've got about 2 minutes left, and I don't see any other questions coming in. But Katie, I want to thank you for you taking the time to prepare these materials and deliver the message. I think you did a fantastic job. I'll say again, I think you're a tremendous asset to the region, and the biggest opportunity, I think, is to make sure that that your collective efforts are leveraged for the rest of the region, and both academia and business. So hopefully we'll be able to talk further about that, and maybe we can help you expand your reach. So everybody, I want to also thank you for attending this program. This was only the second of a long line of Tech Tuesdays to come. And I've got your email addresses from registration, so you'll get new materials about the one coming up in January, which I don't recall what it is right now, but as I get older, I can get away with that. So, but you'll get our materials. Last call before we wrap it up. Okay. All right, that's it. Katie, thank you once again. Thank you, everyone. And stay tuned, and we'll bring a new program to you next month. Happy holidays, happy new year, and stay safe. Stay home as often as you can, and we'll talk to you in January.
Thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you. Take care.